Alright, y'all, so I guess you could call this a little bit of a part two to my last video that I did where I went over my predictions for the Eastern Conference seeding by the end of the year. This video is going to be the Western Conference, so again, I can't predict injuries. That's just not possible. I assume COVID will be having a lot to say about these final seedings, and so these are just predictions based off of no injuries, no COVID, just how I think teams will play out. I will factor in if I think a trade might happen for certain teams, that will be factored in. But other than that, this is just what I think is how the season's going to go down in the Western Conference. So let's just get into it. Coming at the one seed, and I also say that I do have these teams also in kind of like tiers. So, in their own tier, at the one seed, I have the reigning champion LA Lakers. They just won the championship last season. They still have LeBron. They still have AD. If anything, their team got better with the additions of Wesley Matthews and Marcus Sol, Montrezl Harrell, all those guys. They're only going to make the team better. At the end of the day, I mean, it really doesn't even matter. As long as you have a somewhat decent supporting cast, having LeBron and Anthony Davis on your team, those are two of the top 5, top 10, whatever you want to say, guys in the league in general at all positions. So Lakers are going to be dominant again, and we're just going to have to enjoy it. Now, stepping down a tier into the second tier of the Western Conference, and at the 2 seed, I have the LA Clippers reclaiming their spot. I have been so confused on what to say about the LA Clippers this offseason. Obviously, they lose JaMychal Green, they lose Montrezl Harrell, they bring on Serge Ibaka, they just have a whole lot of stuff and drama going around with their team in the locker room, and Paul George and Kawhi getting star treatment, and all of it's a little crazy. But at the end of the day, similar to what I said about the Lakers, the Clippers still have PG, they still have Kawhi. I understand people differ on PG, but I'd say he's at least a top 20 player in the league. You have Kawhi, who's probably around that top 5 to 10 range. So as long as they have just somewhat of a decent supporting cast, I know they also just brought back Reggie Jackson, which is going to be huge for their second unit. That was looking a little bit diminished, to say the least. But I think the Clippers are going to be fine. There might be an issue of resting with Kawhi and PG, but again, I think when they're on the court together, as long as they can avoid serious injuries, they'll win enough games. They're going to be slotted back into that second seed. Now, at the 3 seed, I am going with the Dallas Mavericks, and there might be a little bit of Luka bias here. I do love me some Luka, but in all seriousness, he's only going to take another step forward. He's going to easily be an MVP candidate this season. And Porzingis might not be healthy the entire way, but when he is, he'll definitely add his scoring and rim protection. And other than that, the Mavericks have just done a great job getting some actual defense on their team. They did lose Seth Curry, but again, this was an all-time offense last season, so losing one shooter is not going to be entirely detrimental. They had a lot of draft picks. They still have Tim Hardaway. Overall, I think this is just going to be a very dangerous team with the fact that they're going to have Luka manning the offense, and they're just going to have an absolute slew of defenders to throw at whoever they face. I think they might be a bit of a dark horse this season, and I might have them a little bit high at the number 3 spot, but I think it is certainly doable. Now, coming in at the 4 seed, I have the Denver Nuggets, and they just made it to the Western Conference Finals, got slapped around a little bit by the Lakers, but I think they still have Jokic, they still have Jamal Murray, those are their cornerstones. They did lose out on Jeremy Grant, who was probably their 3rd best player in the playoffs, so I think that will be a bit of a detrimental loss to them. Hopefully Michael Porter Jr. can pick it up on the defensive end, and I mean, other than that, they still have a very deep team. They still have Gary Harris, they still have Will Barton, they just re-signed Monte Morris to an extension. They're going to have the depth, they have the talent. It's just going to be a matter of, can they replicate what they did last season at the end of the year in the bubble, and can Jamal Murray extend his hot streak and prove that he is now an all-star type, all-NBA maybe level player. The main thing that really just does worry me about the Nuggets is the fact that they lost Jeremy Grant, and they just haven't been that good defensively in the front court in general, even with Jeremy Grant. So losing him is just going to make that a whole lot worse. And when you have to deal with teams like the Lakers and the Clippers, who have Kawhi and PG, who can bully their bigs, I'm just not quite sure how that's going to work out for them in the long run. Now, as we head into the 5th seed, we're going to be dropping down a tier into the 3rd tier of the Western Conference. And at the 5 seed, I have the Portland Trailblazers. Now, I am very, very excited to see this Trailblazers team in action. One thing that I've kind of hit me recently that I've been thinking about is I think this could easily be a Damian Lillard MVP candidacy year. I don't know why we haven't heard his name in the discussion in the past, other than the fact that the Trailblazers simply haven't been that good. But even that one season when they made it to the Western Conference Finals, I felt like I didn't hear a lot about Dame for MVP. So I think this could be the year where he finally gets into those discussions. This might be the best team that Lillard's had around him, based off the facts that they still have McCollum, they still have Nurkic, they added Covington, they added Derrick Jones Jr., and they just add a lot of wing talent and wing defense and just wing depth, something that the Blazers have never had with Damian Lillard. And I think they're going to quietly be a very good team. I wouldn't be surprised if they're sort of like what the Heat were last year, and that they're going to be a dark horse that could potentially make a good playoff run, because we all know how Dame can get hot and make that last for a couple games in a row. Again, I think they're going to be a very fun team to watch. Next up at the 6th seed, I have the Utah Jazz. I think is this where they finished last season? I'm trying to think. Who'd they play? They played the Nuggets. No, they finished in the 7th seed last season. Wait, no, they're 6th seed. My bad. They were, okay, yeah, 6th seed is where they finished last season. I have them finishing in the same spot, and, they didn't make a whole lot of changes to their team, and that's okay. They still have Mitchell, they still have Gobert, they still have Ingles, they still have Bogdanovich. They re-signed Jordan Clarkson, got him back, and I mean, Donovan Mitchell's going to take a step. Rudy Gobert is going to be his same all defensive, depoy type center. They're just kind of the same team to me, and that's okay because they're a good team, but not much else. So they don't quite have the talent to match up with the teams in front of them, but they definitely have more talent than the teams behind them. So 6th seed. And rounding out this 3rd tier at the 7th spot, I have the Phoenix Suns, who were very busy this offseason, made the big trade for Chris Paul, brought on a lot of other free agents to help round out their bench, and I like many teams in this Western Conference, I'm just very excited to see a lineup of Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, DeAndre Ayton, maybe throw a Saric in there every now and then, and like I said, I'm just very excited to see if Chris Paul can continue to just be the the mentor that every team loves to have on their team. I think Devin Booker could easily make a jump to an MVP level consideration. This Phoenix Suns team definitely has a lot of the hype right now, fresh off their 8-0 bubble run, and they're really hoping to carry that momentum into this next season. And I think they will, but not quite to the extent that people might think, just because, like as I've said for some other teams, there's just so much talent in front of them that I'm not quite sure if an aging Chris Paul and an up-and-coming Devin Booker are quite going to be enough to get them into the higher seeds. Now we take a step into the 4th tier of the Western Conference, and at the 8th seed I have the Houston Rockets. I had to take them down a spot or two after the Westbrook and Wall trade, just because I think they definitely got the worst player in John Wall. And that's not to say that John Wall's bad. I just, with the injury concerns with the Achilles and everything, and the fact that we haven't seen John Wall play healthy in like 3 or 4 years, Westbrook's just simply a better player right now. Now, obviously, with James Harden, as long as James Harden doesn't sit out, which honestly he might at this point, I wouldn't blame him. But assuming he doesn't sit out, the Rockets are going to be a playoff team just because Harden's going to be able to go out and get you 30, 10, and 6 a night. That's just the type of player he is. Doesn't matter how much practice he's had, doesn't matter how many reps he's gotten, he's just going to do that because that's how much of a special player he is. The rest of the roster, though, is just a lot of question marks. Like I said, John Wall, fresh off an injury, DeMarcus Cousins, fresh off an injury. I am excited to see what Christian Wood's able to do in a bigger role, but other than that, they have Eric Gordon, Daniel House, and then just a lot of meh around the rest of the roster, and unless James Harden just comes out and has an MVP season, I don't quite see this team getting that to that high of a seed in the first place, but even making just a good playoff run in the second place. Now, at the 9 seed, I have a team similar to the Rockets in a way, and it's the Golden State Warriors, and this is because their team is pretty much just Steph Curry, and others right now. They lost Klay Thompson to an injury. They have a whole lot of new pieces coming in. James Wiseman, they just drafted. They bring in Kelly Oubre, brought in Kent Bazemore. I think they're all going to be great additions and have good, seasons here at Golden State. But we haven't seen Curry do it yet by himself. I think he's definitely capable of it. But again, I kind of need to see it to believe it. I don't know that this team is as talented as a lot of the other teams in front of them, especially considering the Warriors bench isn't all that great. And just overall, if teams are able to hunker down on Curry and contain him, I just don't quite see anyone else on this team stepping up and being a second scorer or third scorer, or just even secondary creator. Like on the Rockets, at least they have John Wall, who even if he's not quite close to his old self, he can still go out there and produce for others. There's just no one out there that is with Curry. I guess Andrew Wiggins. I'm not even going to talk about Andrew Wiggins, but he can go out and get you 20 points, but he's not helping others. We're moving on. Warriors is 9 seed. And then finally, in their own tier, the 5th tier of the Western Conference, rounding out the play-in spots, I have the New Orleans Pelicans at the 10 seed. And this one is largely assuming that Zion stays healthy. I've said it in past videos. This team will go as far as Zion takes them. If he's healthy, I think they snag this 10th seed. If he's not healthy, I think it goes to the Memphis Grizzlies. But even without Zion, I think this Pelicans team might be just as talented as the Grizzlies. Just due to the fact they have Brandon Ingram, they have Eric Bledsoe, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart. They have a pretty solid young core, and the Grizzlies do too, and almost made the playoffs last season. But you have to remember that because Zion was out for like 40 games, they did have quite an advantage on them. And I love Ja. I love Jaren Jackson Jr. I love that whole Grizzlies team and the mentality that they're starting to develop there. But overall, I think the Pelicans just have the talent advantage over them right now. Doesn't mean that the Grizzlies can't get that 10th spot, but I just think as long as Zion stays healthy, it goes to the Pelicans. And that will do it for my Western Conference seeding predictions. Here is the final list again, just so you guys can get one well-rounded look at it here at the end. And other than that, drop some comments down below on your predictions for the Western Conference or what you think about mine while you're down there. Maybe think about hitting the like button if you enjoyed this video or enjoy this type of content. Other than that, as always, most importantly, thank you for watching.